More testimony and more text messages in the Theranos fraud trial today. The company's former chief operating officer, Sunny Balwani, on trial. And our business and tech reporter, Scott Budman, was in the courtroom in San Jose today. He's in our newsroom now with the very latest. Scott.
Well, good evening, Janelle. This trial moving along a little more slowly than the Holmes trial. We heard again today from a former Theranos employee who says he was aware that Sunny Balwani was working with Elizabeth Holmes to run the company, but initially not aware that they were in a personal relationship as well. Now, the relationship between Holmes and Balwani is something the lawyers have brought up several times, both when Holmes was on trial and now with Balwani, likely trying to establish that they were in tandem when it came to setting goals for Theranos and ultimately its failures. Today, along with more text messages establishing that relationship, we heard a lot more of the early ideas the company had back when it was a startup. And while this is old knowledge for many of us, it is important to remember this is a jury tasked with not paying attention to the podcasts, movies, books, social media, and company news that's been in the headlines for years.
The issue is when a case becomes far more than a legal case, far more than a criminal case, but becomes part of the culture, which is what Theranos has become. It's truly impossible for the jury to avoid it, but it really is important for the jury to stay away from it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's certainly hard to find a jury that is not tainted, Scott. Okay, this case against Balwani versus Elizabeth Holmes, they both face the same fraud trials, but any differences in the two trials going on?
You know, so far, not many. And I think, Janelle, it's because of what you just said. They both face the same charges. And if you think about it, in the Holmes trial, over a 4-month period, the prosecution won. Their playbook was successful. They were able to convict Holmes on 4 fraud charges. So they're sticking to a very similar strategy against Sunny Balwani. On the other hand, the defense is trying to convince the jury that Balwani was really not that involved with the company, but rather sort of a sideline player who just provided some funding. And that's what we're going to see back and forth, I think, over the next several weeks.
Okay, thank you, Scott Budman. And